This is one of my favorite shorts creators in all of YouTube right now. Maplad, always with the bangers. However, this one's gonna have some controversy here. Finland is the most cowardly country in Europe. Europe's biggest coward, oh boy. So obviously we're talking about the Cold War here.
Cowardly country in Europe. During the Cold War, Finland was trying its hardest to stay on the good side of the USSR.
Well, yes.
So it feared taking any action against the USSR.
Well, I mean, look where they're positioned on the map, and look how big they are. I mean, can you really blame them? But let's see what else adds to this.
Speaking about the Chernobyl explosion or joining NATO. This is why Germans coined the term Finlandization, which refers to a situation
I didn't know it was a negative thing. I mean, I've used that term before in videos. It sounds like a pretty neutral word, but maybe not always.
Which refers to a situation where a smaller country would do anything to maintain relations with a stronger one. However, Finland recently proved the Germans wrong by joining NATO in 2023.
Oh, that's a really great point. Does it surprise me that the West was giving Finland crap during the Cold War, that they didn't choose the West side? No, not at all. That's pretty normal. But it's like, dang, can you just look at a map? And also, can you understand Finland's history? They were literally ruled over by the Russian Empire up until 1917. They already knew what it was like to be under control of the Russians. They definitely didn't want to do that again. Not to mention, of course, there was the Winter War that took place before World War II and then kind of during World War II. Finland here just kind of got to roleplay as Switzerland for a couple decades there during the Cold War, and I don't even really blame them. I mean, I don't really see a whole lot of people mad at the Swiss for not choosing a side during World War II, especially considering this was the situation they were dealing with. Maybe there's some people that are mad about Switzerland for that, but Finnish government trying not to get their people invaded. Finland coward. To be fair, the Germans also had a direct border with the Warsaw Pact nations, but they didn't really have a choice. Like, they were kind of just forced in to join this side. Still, Finland joined NATO. I don't think anyone's really considering Finland a coward, though. What if the US nuked Tokyo?
City like Tokyo during World War II.
I mean, first of all, I'm sure they probably thought about it. I'm sure the idea was probably thrown around, but enough, smart generals were probably like, we probably should not do that. That would piss the Japanese off so bad.
Japanese people's dedication to fight, it became clear that Japan would not surrender unless the USA invaded the entire island.
And
however, the USA didn't want to do this as it would be devastating and expensive. This is why they nuked two smaller cities, as it would cause lower casualties than an all-out invasion. Moreover, Japan would fear a nuke on Tokyo, which would make them surrender.
That's a good point. And I do have to think that, like, the historical significance of Tokyo was considered as well. Not to say that Hiroshima and Nagasaki also didn't have history. They had some history. They had a lot of history. But Tokyo was the capital, That would have been so messed up. I understand we were at war. I understand the Japanese were also just horrific during World War II. According to Google's AI, which, be careful with that, they didn't bomb Tokyo because of obviously previous bombings. They already did completely bash Tokyo before. Of course, not with nuclear radiation, because that's a whole different level. So 16 squared miles of Tokyo was destroyed in bombing raids previously. But for reference, 43 squared miles of Nagasaki was destroyed. One thing I'm just imagining is like how the Spaniards like completely destroyed the Aztec capital and just like burned a bunch of things down like that. I feel like that'd be the equivalent if they just destroyed Tokyo like that. It'd just be like such a sad loss of so much. If this happened, Japan would have sided with the USSR. It probably would have become like North Korea. I don't know about all that, but that is an interesting thought experiment. I mean, obviously Japan ended up being our friend, so they weren't too pissed off at us. It'd be crazy to see a communist Japan, though. France's wildest dreams.
Firstly, it would 100% invade Germany because Germany is really rich, but also doesn't have enough power to stop France. Invading the
Come again? Germany does not have enough power to stop France. I don't know. Something else I'm thinking about right here is France's nuclear policy during the Cold War with the whole concept of dropping a warning nuke. Love that.
UK wouldn't be possible since it has nukes too, but the lil bro next to UK will probably get annexed. From Germany, it can start invading Czechia, Austria, and other Balkan countries, while up north,
they would need to revive Napoleon for this.
Strong Nordic countries is also an amazing idea. Lastly, Spain is also possible since it doesn't have nuclear weapons.
Okay. France does have a pretty solid military. I think maybe the top in Europe, maybe just around the UK, but still pretty wishful thinking. Interesting that they would invade Ireland like the British would allow them to just invade Ireland like that. I don't think they would. Surprised there wasn't a scenario of the French going after Belgium, at least getting, the French-speaking part of Belgium over on their side. Luxembourg is also a nice tiny nation the French would probably want because they've got just so much money. We're also just speaking about Switzerland. They probably want the French-speaking side of Switzerland and maybe more than that. I mean, those would probably be maybe easy to take, more or less. Realistically, the second France invades Germany, the US would get involved evolved since these countries are members of NATO. Yeah, I know. The comment section always talks about it, but I don't mind just forgetting that stuff because it's just a fun thought experiment. Like that part's not fun. I know that NATO would stop literally anybody, but let's just pretend like NATO collapsed. Netherlands and Belgium, I'm still standing. Everyone's gangsta until wildest dreams of Germany. Love that this was said by Benito Mussolini. Thank you, Benito. You would know.
So
who would be Europe's ruler if Europe united?
If it were only about the EU, then Germany or France would simply choose the president as they are the strongest.
Yeah,
however, when we introduce countries like Britain, Russia, and Turkey...
Also, keep in mind, Russia has the most population in all of Europe, so if it just went based off population, it would be Putin.
Such power to any country would cause turmoil.
Yeah.
The first solution would be to just choose one of the small...
I wonder, this is so interesting. You could go with like a Swiss, the way the Swiss do it. They have like a council of like 7, and then doesn't the council vote for one leader or something like that? Or yeah, voting for a smaller country like this would work as well.
Smaller countries like Switzerland, so no one gets offended. They could also create a government system like Malaysia, where a representative from each of these stronger countries gets a chance to rule for a few years.
Oh, that's also very interesting. Maybe just bring back how the Holy Roman Empire do it. Have like electors and princes and things like that. This would certainly be a freaking mess though, because man, all the countries that exist inside of Europe just choosing one dude to lead the entire continent. There's definitely a system that is probably like the least controversial, but even that would probably be a mess. Like slightly, just slightly so. Bro gave a flashback to Germany and France for 2 seconds. You could always bring back some old people that used to rule Europe like Napoleon or, well, I can't say the other German guy. Realistically, it would be led by council of representatives similarly to the current European Parliament. Maybe they shouldn't even vote for a European at all. Just have like some American, or actually they would never do that. Some random country like a Uruguayan be the president of Europe. No one would be too upset about that, right? I think MapLab does a great job of like focusing on really interesting ideas. Like lots of thought comes into my mind after I watch his videos. Russia's biggest weakness.
Peanut hole was Russia's biggest weakness.
This is actually
a country can claim waters up to 200
pretty interesting
miles from its coastline,
because whenever I play games like strategy games and I have to invade Russia, I always go up through Siberia. It's a little bit easier that way.
Russian control. However, in the 1990s, countries realized that this area called Peanut Hole was farther than 200 miles from the coast, meaning it wasn't legally Russian waters. As a result, countries like Ukraine, South Korea, China, and even Poland sent fishing boats to this region just to irritate Russia. However, Russia got the full rights of Peanut Hole in 2014.
I thought we were going to go way deeper into that. Russia's biggest weakness, this Peanut Hole. I thought we were talking about like invading Russia or something. I feel like Russia's got a lot more weaknesses than just this though, gotta say. The big one obviously being the lack of warm water ports that they have. That's probably Russia's real weakness, because all this stuff gets real cold during the winter, but they do now have this stuff. And they just borrow it from their homie North Korea. I mean, they got like a railroad, I guess, that leads to North Korea. With climate change though, this might change over time, them getting access to more warm water ports. Poland traveling all those miles, wasting more money on fuel than they can fish just to mess with Russia. Do we expect anything else from Poland though? Why was Germany allowed to keep a military after World War II? The answer is, well, it's really obvious, but I know there's people that probably don't understand. Yeah, World War II, Germany does all these atrocities. It's horrible. They throw the world into chaos. And then 10 years later, they're like, all right, you good. You could bring up that military again.
Both Germanys had no military because it was considered too risky. However, after just 10 years, the situation changed. You see, after North Korea invaded the South, USA got concerned and asked West Germany to raise an army because if war broke out, West Germany would have been on the front lines.
Essentially the Cold War.
Initially opposed this as they thought armed Germans would again start marching towards Moscow. However,
well, it was half
later
of them.
It also started militarizing its part of Germany.
Also, Russia owned, the Soviets basically puppeted, so much of former German territory, if you consider like, World War I Germany with all the Polish lands. But yeah, the answer is basically the Cold War. And I'm sure in the back of their head, I think the West was probably like not super concerned. Like they would rather sacrifice the Germans who they were just at war with if the Cold War actually became a hot war. So them like rebuilding a military, I feel like they was super down for that. Interesting they brought up the Korean War though, obviously in 1950. I mean, was it a factor? Yeah, but it was just overall, Cold War thing. Man, the Cold War was just splitting up nations all over the place. You got the Korean Peninsula, you got Germany, you got Vietnam, which was momentarily split up until the North won, obviously. Germany allowed to have a military, Poland and France, bad idea. Especially only in 1955, there's no way the whole denazification really was done. Like, I mean, I've seen some crazy videos of 1960s and 70s Germany where the people were, there was some people people still doing some salutes, some old salutes. Not allowed to do that anymore. This one's definitely piqued my interest. The U.S. apparently almost nuked Israel.
After the Suez Crisis of 1956, the USA proposed a new canal running from the Gulf of Aqaba to
they
the
were gonna.
Mediterranean.
Yeah, I mean, this was not a real idea, but
520 nuclear bombs to create this canal. However, this was never done because
it's
firstly,
so
it is
funny.
purely stupid as it could potentially destroy our planet.
It's
Secondly,
the dumbest thing.
Egypt's canal is the shortest and most efficient route, while this one would add around 50 extra miles.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be fun to do. It's so hilarious to see, like, the insane, like, once we had access to nuclear technology, like, the insane ideas. We thought we could just do everything with nuclear technology. Everything was possible. It really was like the Fallout universe. Like, I'm thinking of how Douglas MacArthur wanted to nuke North Korea into oblivion. Like, he just did that. He just thought about doing that like it was nothing. This has to be the most American thing in history. USA was gonna change Earth's orbit to get that canal. Shovels were invented 12,000 years ago. People 12,100 years ago. I mean, wait, does that... I don't even know if that makes sense. What if Russia was Muslim?
So according to some legends, the first ruler
so there
of Russia
is Muslim
only
population
accepted
obviously in
Christianity
Russia
over Islam because Islam prohibits
it's a little
drinking.
bit
But what if he had chosen
controversial,
Islam for his
spicy.
people? Firstly, a Muslim Russia would almost double the land of the Muslim world.
Holy
Secondly,
crap.
this would mean that now
Didn't think
two
about that.
Muslim countries would have nuclear weapons.
Yes, that's Pakistan and wait a second.
Moreover, the Russian Empire was extremely influential, so a Muslim Russian Empire could have resulted in many European countries also converting to Islam.
Well, that would have been, oh wow, yeah, I mean, there's that whole aspect. Russia also had a big rivalry with the Ottomans for so long throughout history. I wonder if that would have pulled the two together, or there could have been I bet you there would have been a schism. I think Shia or Sunni, maybe there would have been a third branch of Islam that would broken out. I mean, they were so far away, they'd probably find a reason to just do something else. Also, imagine Russians without vodka. Like, they'd probably be like Bosnia. If they were Muslim, they would make an exception, like, it's cool, you could drink. Imagine Stalin, bin Salman, and even Lenin and Al Putin watching this video. Homie said Russians can't live without vodka, so we gonna choose Christianity. Yeah, I really wonder what that relationship would be like, because those two were fighting all the time. Tiny Denmark is becoming a superpower.
Stronger than your country. Firstly, little Denmark
because they've got Greenland
of the Baltic Sea, meaning all these 5 countries must go through Denmark to leave the Baltic. Secondly,
they also have Lego.
Denmark alone owns the largest island in the world,
which is like 50 times bigger.
And equatorial regions become uninhabitable. Many countries would ask Denmark to take their refugees, making Denmark immensely influential.
I don't know about, well, I don't know. The last part was kind of a stretch, but Denmark definitely punches way above its weight in a lot of different categories. They also have the Faroe Islands. Denmark also invented the strongest weapon in history, the Lego brick. So here's the other less talked about Danish territory here. But yeah, Greenland really shifts a lot of things with climate change. Like, who knows how habitable this can be. Right now, there's like 38,000 people that live on Greenland, but who knows what it could eventually be one day. It could be hard to, maybe in 100 years, maybe. But definitely their location locks this stuff down. Denmark, probably stronger than your country. Meanwhile, Denmark in World War II, yeah, they only lasted like 6 hours. Denmark in the 20th century, whatever. Denmark in the 21st century, mega chads. I guess we're gonna see another 50 years. They kind of need more territory though. Maybe they can form like a Nordic union and then essentially just rule it as the de facto leader. I don't know if Sweden's gonna be cool with that though. Very nice map, lad. Please go subscribe. As always, I learned a lot. Big thanks to the patrons. Month 1 in Drew's basement. Kansas was mentioned. I can't sleep without Drew's voice. Drew's Argentinian Grandpa. I'm back. Amateur Archaeology. aPhatNarwhal. Carmel Saida. DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood. InquisitorXarius. KirinoIsBestGirl. Tyrol. The Mexican KingBearHaze. Fredrik Tibblin. And ZaneyBoi.